My grandmother on my dad's side of the family was one of 11 kids. Once they were adults, the 10 surviving siblings no longer lived in the same home. Several of them no longer lived in the same town, but they wanted to stay in touch with each other. So they came up with this family letter that they kept going for years. The oldest would write something and send it to their follower, the next oldest. Then that sibling would read it, add to the letter, maybe engaging what was already there from their older sibling, maybe giving their own updates, mail it to the next sibling, and so on and so on. And when you got it back, you would remove what you wrote last time and write something new. So there was always 9 siblings, 9 entries for you to catch up on, and then you added your own. Sometimes they included what was going on with them, their families, work, church, life. Sometimes they included a story about a generation or more ago, a memory. Maybe a photo surfaced and they photocopied it to send it to the siblings. A newspaper article they came across. Did you know this about our hometown? Sometimes encouragement or support for one going through a hard time. There were happy and sad stories, proud and embarrassing moments shared. One of their adult children, for instance, crashed an airplane in Cuban airspace, probably due to being too heavy with drugs, and spent some time in a Cuban prison. By the time of my childhood memory about the family letter, it was the plethora of cousins that wanted to stay in touch, fondly remembered their parents' family letter, and started their own version. My dad was by far the youngest of 5. His oldest brother was 21 when he was born. His next youngest sibling was 11, so he had a lot of cousins older than him. One cousin curated the letter, collecting submissions by email or snail mail, making hard copies of all she had gathered, and once a year, mailing 20 pages or so to all the cousin subscribers, who sent her $20 or so for the postage and the printing and all. I thought of this family letter when reading Hebrews chapter 11. The author of Hebrews shares stories about the family of faith, the ancestors, while also addressing the present. There are good, exemplary stories and difficult, painful stories, but they all contribute to who we are as the family of faith. They make up the story we find ourselves in. The initial readers or hearers of this letter need reminded that they're part of a long story, that they have a heritage of faith. They need stories from those that have gone before to encourage them, to remind them that hardships are nothing new. There are others who have endured. The author of Hebrews situates the readers of the letter from that time until today into a longer story. And in the last verses of today's reading that Cinda did for us, gives us a focus: Jesus. In one of the commentaries I read this week, Tom Long writes, "Being a Christian means doing what comes quite unnaturally, taking the strange story of Jesus as our own story. And sometimes we get discouraged, as did the original recipients of the letter to the Hebrews. We try to live the way of Jesus with generosity, forgiveness, seeking justice, prioritizing a community of faith, and not much seems to change. We sacrifice and even suffer in order to live out the ways of Jesus, but what's the use? Tom Long says, we must walk this path, live this story together, with each other now and with those who have gone before. Jesus is our model in this story as the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. And those that precede us are a great cloud of witnesses that support us by their example and the legacies they left in their parts of the story. What encourages us to persist in our moment of the story, our leg of the race, Long suggests, is not a new program at church or fresh paint on the building, but relationship with Jesus and with each other as we live this Jesus story together. The mention of joy in these verses seems small, yeah? There was a long reading and then joy was mentioned one time. In fact, the bulk of the research I did this week about this passage hardly mentioned that word or concept. But the joy that Jesus had is part of what we focus on, and it's worth drawing out, especially in times of struggle or discouragement. Finding joy in relationship with God, in relationship with each other, isn't peripheral or a bonus, but part of what keeps us going, part of what defines the plot of this Jesus story. Joy, as Joy reminded us, isn't just for the good times, but is there in the hard times if we look for it, if we find it, if we create it, if we celebrate it. It's necessary for the challenging times, as Jesus demonstrates. I imagine Jesus could not have endured what he did if he did not find joy in being faithful to God, knowing God was faithful to him. Joy in doing what was right, even if it got him killed. May joy get us through the tough times and sweeten the good times. The joy of Jesus. We've used multiple metaphors today. A long story is the series title that we're in as we're focused on the Epistle of Hebrews. There's a journey. There's a race in the reading that Cinda did for us. Whatever language we use about our stint of life and faith on this earth, there's much we inherit or receive, and much we pass on to those who continue after us. I appreciate that Joy's testimony connected her with her parents and her community and her own life journey and invited us into it as well. Thank you, Joy. This faith thing is a team race, a plot with many supporting characters, a journey alongside fellow travelers. We don't find our way forward alone, but together with God, with each other, and with that great cloud of witnesses that have gone before. In this, may we find joy. Amen.